Black Lives Matter. What's really going on? I'm Tyrone Bowman. This is Tyrone Bowman Tonight. Topic of discussion: Black Lives Matter needs to get its real expensive house in order. I found an article written by Karen Ataya, who is a columnist for the Washington Post, and I'm now going to read this article in its entirety. Quote, ever since Black Lives Matter became a rallying cry in 2014, Black people knew that the movement could not afford to slip up. 8 years and more than 90 million in donations later, BLM's national leadership has made a $6 million stumble. Sean Campbell, writing last week in New York Magazine's online Intelligentsia, reported that in 2020, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation secretly purchased a $6 million, 6,500 square foot mansion near Malibu, California, using donated funds. According to memos quoted in the report, the foundation's leaders settled on a tactic of describing the mansion as both a safe house and a place providing recording resources and dedicated space for Black creatives to launch content online and real life focus on abolition, healing justice, urban agriculture, and food justice, pop culture, activism, and politics. As Intelligentsia reported, or as the Intelligentsia noted, little content had been produced since the house was procured in October 2020, save a few videos that Patrice Cullors, former executive director of the foundation, filmed there. It said those videos were on her YouTube channel, which has been scrubbed. The day Campbell's article dropped, the official Black Lives Matter Twitter account tweeted, RT to spread the word. We are redefining what it means to be an activist in this generation with our new fellowship and creator house. Cullors lashed out the next day on Instagram saying the house purchased hadn't been announced earlier because the property needed repairs and renovation. Do you think we're stupid? For years, people marched, got tear gassed, donated, and literally put their lives on the line in the hopes of Black emancipation, not a Black influencer McMansion. The story has sharpened focus on what Black people have been saying about BLM's national leadership for years, since the movement's early days when it took off after Mike Brown Jr. was killed by a Ferguson, Missouri police officer. Activists there had been calling out the exploitation of Black pain for profit. One frequent critic of self-interested supporters was Darren Seals, who in 2016 tweeted, I just want people to realize these BLM frauds and orgs like them is exploiting millions off the dead. It was almost 5 years later that BLM revealed to the Associated Press that by February 2021, it had taken in $9 million in donations. Families of victims killed by police immediately spoke out. Why hasn't my family's foundation received any assistance from the movement? Said Mike Brown Sr., who's been trying to establish a community center in Ferguson. Samira Rice, whose 12-year-old son Tamar was shot with a toy gun in his hand in Cleveland, and Lisa Simpson, mother of Richard Reicher, who was killed by Los Angeles police, specifically called out the foundation in Cullors, saying, we don't want or need y'all parading in the streets, accumulating donations, platforms, movie deals, etc., off the dead of our loved ones, while the families and communities are left clueless and broken. In last year's AP report, the foundation said it had committed $21.7 million to official and unofficial BLM chapters, and its expenses were $8.4 million, leaving around $60 million unexplained. They said their average donation was around $30, but declined to name prominent donors. So where is the rest of the money going? Why do we still have to ask? I emailed BLM's national organization. They did not respond to questions. I'm quoting now. These are not my words. The lack of transparency is a serious betrayal. During the Trump years, many of us wanted to protect the movement from attacks by the right, but we can't defend a BLM national leadership that arrogantly refuses to be accountable to Black victims and communities. One excuse I've heard is that $90 million collected in a short amount of time would be too much for any organization to know what to do with, and the foundation is less than a decade old. To that I'd say inexperience and disorganization are no excuse in any age where organizers on the right are fundraising and mobilizing fast and effectively to enact legislation against teaching race in schools and Black voting rights. In her statement on Instagram, Colors, who stepped down last year saying she would focus on other projects and deals, apologized for being silent but demanded that people understand the enormous pressure and fear that comes with living under the constant threat of white supremacist terror and legal threats on my life. That's true. Threats to Black activists in this country are real. But that doesn't give organizations that claim to uphold Black lives the right to act in our names unchallenged. We should have done more to evaluate or to alleviate the voices of victims' families and local BLM chapters who raise questions about the national organization hoarding all the resources and power, throwing charitable crumbs to those whose agendas they agreed with. In her Instagram post, Colors said that BLM will release its 990s forms that tax-exempt nonprofit filed to the IRS very soon. We're waiting. Let's be a $6 million wake-up call to BLM's leadership. It's time for y'all to get your house in order or move on. As I said, this article was written by the columnist for the Washington Post. Her name is Karen Ataya, and she is a columnist for the Washington Post. She writes on international affairs, culture, and social issues. Check this out. Real talk. When you know that you have an organization that is going to be under the microscope 24 hours a day, every move you make, every word that you speak, and every dollar that you raise is going to be scrutinized by your enemies, why would you not have things already organized and structured from the very inception? You don't get a pass because it's a Black organization. The nonprofit laws that govern the United States of America constitutionally, they were written by the people who are in power. Granted, many of them are doing the same thing that BLM is doing. However, at the same time, BLM, get your house in order and get your business fixed, because your enemies are waiting and they're watching to take you down. Never surrender, never quit.